Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to today's New York City Council hearing of the Committee on Housing and Buildings, jointly with Aging. At this time, we ask that everybody please silence your cell phones. If you wish to testify in today's hearing, you can come up to the sergeant's table and fill out one of these slips. Written testimony can be emailed to testimony@council.nyc.gov. Again, that's testimony@council.nyc.gov. Thank you for your cooperation. Chairs, we are ready to begin.
Thank you. Can you gavel us in? Good afternoon. I am Councilmember Crystal Hudson, and I chair the Committee on Aging. Thank you, Chair Sanchez, for hosting this joint hearing with the Committee on Housing and Buildings for this very important hearing on increasing affordable housing for older New Yorkers and improving accessibility in the city's housing stock. Older adults in New York City comprise 13%, or 1.1 million people, which is approximately 200,000 greater than the number of students enrolled in New York City public schools. As the baby boomer generation retires in greater numbers and medical advances allow an increasing number of people to live longer, the number of older adults living in New York City is projected to rise to over 1.4 million by 2040. According to the U.S. Census American Community Survey, fewer than half of older New Yorkers live in homes owned by someone in the household. Latinx, Black, and Asian Pacific Islander older adults are less likely to live in a residence that is owned compared with white older adults, and an estimated 110,000 older New Yorkers live in public housing. Additionally, according to the 2021 New York City Housing and Vacancy Survey, about 1 in 5 New York City households comprised one or more person with a disability, with statistically similar shares among renters and owners. This included households where any household member had a hearing, vision, ambulatory, cognitive, self-care, or independent living difficulty. New York City has a long history of residential segregation and disinvestment in neighborhoods of color, which has left many older New Yorkers of color without the supports needed to age healthily, including affordable housing, social support, safety, accessible public transportation, and health care. With its high-density urban population, ethnic and racial diversity, and increasing longevity, the city must account for the unique needs of the older adult population. This is especially urgent as older New Yorkers have reported negative effects of the pandemic on their lives. While the city offers a number of housing options and related programs for older adults, displacement and the ability to age in place remain real issues that impact older New Yorkers. At this hearing, I'm looking forward to learning about how the city is working to meet the current need and prepare for the projected need for accessible and affordable housing. Thank you to the advocates and members of the public who are joining us today, and thank you to representatives from the administration for joining us. I'd also like to thank my staff, Casey Addison and Andrew Wright, and Aging Committee staff, Christopher Pepe, Chloe Rivera, and Daniel Krupp. I will now turn it over to Chair Sanchez. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Good afternoon. I am Councilmember Pierina Sanchez, Chair of the Committee on Housing and Buildings. I want to thank you all also for joining today's hearing, joint with the Committee on Aging, to examine housing issues for our aging population, particularly issues related to affordable housing and accessibility. We will hear a number of bills also related to this topic. I'd like to thank Chair Hudson for partnering on today's hearing, as well as members of the administration, the public, and advocates today. I would also like to acknowledge my following colleagues who are present today: Councilmember Shulman, Public Advocate Jamani Williams, looking the other way, Councilmember Carr. An unfortunately popular refrain in New York City has become that we are in a housing crisis. As a council, we call attention to this crisis at each and every opportunity. As we welcome migrants to our city, it is not lost upon this council and myself that even more needs to happen as more stress comes to our system. As we continue to govern with the resources of our great city, we must do more, better, faster, not less, slower, or in more cumbersome ways. One area in which this is resoundingly clear, as you just heard, is with respect to the housing our older adult population. New Yorkers who are at times our most vulnerable and face some of the greatest obstacles to accessing even the resources that presently exist. In addition to the stage that has been set by Councilmember Hudson, take, for instance, the examples that we see in our offices day by day. We have a senior who came in a few weeks ago to my office who has a rent burden of over 70% of her income. She has tried to apply for NYCHA, for Housing Connect opportunities, for City FHEPS vouchers in the past, but her applications expire. She doesn't understand the process. There's language barriers, there's digital access issues. Even when she can access a computer or access to the internet, she may not know how to navigate the proper systems. She's been applying, she says, since 2011. There's another constituent who earns $928 per month from Social Security, and her rent is $900 at present. She is left with nothing at the end of the month when she pays for her housing. She had a Section 8 voucher, but she was not able to get an apartment with it because, as we know, source of income discrimination is also very real and faced also by our senior population. Overall, there are immense, tremendous barriers that our seniors face, especially as we live in a city with a housing crisis. One of my neighborhood organizations, called the United Neighborhood Housing Program, or UNHP, hosts the Northwest Bronx Housing Resource Center. In the Resource Center, they share that they have helped over 3,400 families, 3,400 households submit over 13,000 Housing Connect applications, and yet only 15 households have gained entry into an affordable apartment. 83% of units available in Housing Connect in my neighborhood do not meet the requirements that the residents in my neighborhood earn, incomes lower than 40% of AMI. And about 35 to 45% of households in the Northwest Bronx also do not have access to a broadband internet. So these are stories of opportunities lost over missing emails, an inability to connect, not knowing how to navigate. Even when there are nonprofit organizations, they cannot do it all. As our city's aging population grows, there are mounting questions about how the city will meet our housing needs. The recently released Mayor's Management Report already shows for this year we are producing less affordable housing than we were last year. We are slowing production. We're going in the wrong direction. Our seniors need homes that are safe and affordable in order to live in healthy lives and safely. And as my examples illustrate, even as the city works to increase its housing stock for seniors, are we taking the necessary steps to make sure our seniors can adequately access these homes? Today, I look forward to hearing updates from the administration on these and other efforts to improve access to affordable housing for seniors and to improving accessibility for individuals with disability. Towards this end, the committee will hear a number of bills designed to improve housing conditions and access to affordable housing for the city's seniors. Intro 141, sponsored by Councilmember Ayala, relates to power-operated and power-assisted doors. Intro 322, sponsored by Councilmember Brannan, relates to the installation of protective devices for seniors and persons with disability. Intro number 375, sponsored by Councilmember Ayala, relates to the reporting of affordable housing set-asides for tenants with disability. Intro 584, sponsored by the Public Advocate, relates to evictions of disabled tenants. Number 608, sponsored by Councilmember Ayala, relates to compliance with accessibility requirements in construction plans. Intro 676, sponsored by Councilmember Hudson, relates to requiring a percentage of units receiving city financial assistance to be universal designed units. Resolution number 236 calls upon the state for the passage of allowing automatically enrollment into SCRE and DRE. Now, before I turn it over to the administration, I want to take a step that is a bit out of order, if I may. As you may know, this is my first hearing back after giving birth in August. And while I slowed down to be with my brand new, amazing, incredible baby, I'm floored by the way that my office did not miss a beat. I want to thank from the bottom of my heart my team, my incredible staff, Chief of Staff Sam Cardenas, my Legislative Director Kadeem Robinson, Sharon Kituizaka, Chanel Goring, Adrian Cacho, Maria Villalobos, Serimar Olivares. I could not have done what I did as a new mom without all of you, so thank you. I told all of you that when I'm not around, you are me, and you took that to heart. Thank you for loving the community so much and working so incredibly hard every single day. And, of course, we're here today, so thank you to my Housing and Buildings Committee team, Audrey Sun, Jose Conde, Charles Kim, Dan Krupp, and Chima Obucher. With that, I'll turn it over to our committee counsel.
Councilmember Caban, I believe, has an opening statement, and then we'll go to Public Advocate Williams.
Yes, thank you. Thank you to both chairs for holding this hearing. I am the sponsor of the resolution that my colleague and Chair Sanchez mentioned. The SCREE program is based on a simple premise. We owe it to our older neighbors who live with constrained incomes to protect them from rent hikes imposed by profit-thirsty landlords. And that's it. We value the well-being and the dignity of our elders over the profits of the ownership class. And so it makes no sense to require people to enroll in this program rather than guarantee automatic enrollment. That does nothing to improve the program. It does nothing to increase efficiency. It does nothing to generate better outcomes, and it does nothing to elevate the quality of our neighbors' lives. All it does is erect a barrier between this program and the people who need it. So enough. Let's do away with this bureaucratic red tape designed to separate people from the means to lead dignified lives and ensure that everyone who qualifies for SCREE receives the protections we owe them. So I want to thank my co-prime sponsor, Chair Hudson, for your partnership on this and other legislation and your inclusion of this bill today. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Chair Hudson and Chair Sanchez, and congratulations again, Chair Sanchez. Welcome back. And to the members of both committees for holding this incredibly important hearing. As mentioned, my name is Jamani Williams. I'm the public advocate of the City of New York. In 1988, Congress amended Title 8 of the Civil Rights Act of 1968, known as the Fair Housing Act, to prohibit discrimination based on disability in the sale, rental, and financing of housing. People with disabilities are protected from discrimination and entitled to reasonable accommodations when buying or renting a home. Reasonable accommodations can include an exception to a no-pet policy for a service animal, assigning a tenant an accessible parking spot near the front of the building, or allowing a tenant to install grab bars in the bathroom. Although landlords are illegally prohibited from discriminating against or evicting tenants because of their disabilities or required accommodations, it still happens. Disability discrimination complaints are reportedly the most common complaint received by federal and local agencies under the Fair Housing Act. People with disabilities have high rates of housing insecurity and experience poverty at twice the rate of non-disabled adults. Additionally, disabled people are more likely to have medical debt, to receive lower pay, and to experience food insecurities, all factors which contribute to an increased risk of eviction and homelessness. Disabled New Yorkers of more color, especially black women, are even more likely to experience these consequences. Further, having a record with an eviction filing, regardless of whether that eviction was granted, can be a barrier to obtaining rental housing in the future, which can keep renters with disabilities in a cycle of housing instability and homelessness. For these reasons, I have introduced Intro 0584, which would require the Department of Housing and Preservation and Development to provide tenants with disabilities with information about legal services when they are facing eviction. It would also require the Commissioner of HPD to report to the Mayor and the Speaker of the City Council on the pattern of discrimination against disabled tenants. We should be doing everything we can to ensure that tenants with disabilities are provided with the resources they need to stay in their homes. The COVID-19 pandemic has highlighted housing as an issue of public health and safety. Since the expiration of the eviction moratorium earlier this year, evictions have been slowly but steadily increasing. And even before the pandemic, accessible and affordable housing for people with disabilities were extremely limited. I look forward to working with the Committee on Housing and Buildings and the City Council to ensure that all people with disabilities in our city have access to state affordable and accessible housing. New York is now amongst, if not the highest rental market in the entire country. Everyone is being hit. Can only imagine those that have a little bit additional stuff to deal with in their life. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I'd just like to note that we've been joined by Councilmember Felice.
I will now administer the oath to the administration. Please raise your right hand. Do you affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth before this committee and to respond honestly to council member questions? Thank you. You may begin when ready.
Okay. Good afternoon, Committee Chairs Hudson and Sanchez, and members of the Aging and Housing and Buildings Committees. I'm Michael Ognabeni, First Deputy Commissioner and Chief Operating Officer at the New York City Department for the Aging. I'm joined today by my colleagues at the New York City Department of Housing, Preservation and Development, Human Resources Administration, Department of Buildings, and Commission on Human Rights. DFTA has had a strong partnership with HPD and others over the years that resulted in collaborative efforts to address housing concerns for older adults as the city confronts the issue of housing affordability and accessibility. Thank you for the opportunity to testify about how older adults are being connected to housing supports and improving access to affordable housing in New York City. As you know, New York City is experiencing a housing challenge, further complicated by a low vacancy rate, increased rental prices, and high inflation. Older adults, many of whom live on fixed incomes and particularly vulnerable to fluctuating costs, may experience negative outcomes due to high cost of housing. Because of this, DFTA is committed to providing older adults with social supports that will allow them to stay in their homes and communities. This includes case management, home care, home-delivered meals, friendly visiting programs, access to older adult centers, mental health supports, caregiver support programs, elder abuse interventions, and many others. Regarding housing support services that DFTA provides, we are proud of our work with naturally occurring retirement communities, the Tenancy and Eviction Support Services Program, Home Sharing, and Aging Connect. A naturally occurring retirement community, or NORC, is a multi-age buildings or housing development which was not originally intended as a residence for older adults, but now is home to a significant number. Throughout New York City, there are 36 DFTA-funded NORCs that provide a range of services such as case assistance, healthcare options, assistance with benefits and entitlements, recreation or other activities, on-site nursing services, and ways of connecting socially. NORCs help older adults to age in place by utilizing DFTA-funded services and programs to provide the necessary supports that make it possible. DFTA works closely with the Office of Civil Justice at the New York City Human Resources Administration to jointly administer the assigned council project. This is now known at DFTA as Tenancy and Eviction Support Services. While HRA provides direct legal services to older New Yorkers over 60 who are facing eviction as part of the Right to Counsel program, DFTA provides referrals to social services that address the reasons behind a tenant's potential eviction. To qualify for these support services, an older adult must have an active case in housing court. For older adults who are experiencing housing insecurity or other legal matters, DFTA maintains legal services contracts operating in all boroughs that can address a range of issues, housing included. Through the New York Foundation for Senior Citizens, DFTA funds a home sharing program that links adult hosts with extra space in their homes or apartments with appropriate guests who then share that space. One of the people matched must be age 60 or older. The program does not charge clients to be matched, and the hosts and guests work out the monthly contribution amount. The program seeks to match persons for whom shared living arrangements would enhance their financial or social well-being, to promote companionship, and to relieve feelings of isolation. DFTA's in-house information and referral call center, Aging Connect, allows New Yorkers to speak with an aging specialist to learn about programs, supports, and opportunities available to older adults and their caregivers. Housing issues and housing supports are frequently a top call category at Aging Connect. For example, through Aging Connect, older adults can ask for information about the Senior Citizen Rent Increase Exemption, SCREE, which is administered by New York City Department of Finance, or to be connected to HPD's Housing Lottery and Senior First initiative. Aging Connect can also refer older adults to our sister agencies that provide direct housing support like HRA or HPD. DFTA also publishes resources such as Alternatives in Senior Housing Guide and the Aging in Place Guide, which help to direct older adults who are experiencing housing insecurity or may need additional supports with rental assistance. This information can be accessed through the DFTA website or by calling Aging Connect. This is a sample of the services available to older adults as they age in place in New York City. DFTA will continue to work in conjunction with our sister agencies to strengthen existing partnerships and find opportunities to better serve older New Yorkers. That is why we are excited to see the work that will come out of the newly formed Cabinet for Older New Yorkers, which just had its first inaugural meeting on September 21st. This first of its kind multi-agency collaborative was created to support services, projects, and policies benefiting older adults across New York City, with a primary objective to create an age-inclusive New York City. While an agenda has not yet been developed, it is anticipated that the work of the new cabinet will include housing, housing supports, and how older adults access affordable housing. The work of this cabinet will allow for cross-agency collaborations to happen at the commissioner and agency liaison levels to better address people's needs. Ultimately, DFTA's goal is to ensure that all older New Yorkers can access the resources and supports provided by the agency to remain in their homes long-term, age in place with dignity, and live productive and healthy lives without wondering about housing status. We understand that there are 3 bills being considered as part of today's hearing. While we generally are in support of the intent of these bills, we look forward to working with you and your team to identify the best path forward to achieve the stated goals. My colleagues from our partner agencies who have joined us this morning will help to answer your questions regarding direct housing supports provided for all New Yorkers, including older adults. We're ready to build on our ongoing successes amid the growing housing support needs of older adults. Thank you again for this opportunity to testify.
Good morning, Chair Sanchez, welcome back, and Chair Hudson, and members of the Committees on Housing and Buildings and Aging, and Public Advocate Williams. My name is Lucy Jaffe, Assistant Commissioner for Housing Policy at the New York City Department of Housing Preservation and Development. I am joined by my colleagues, Brendan McBride, Associate Commissioner for New Construction, and Carrie Labatz, Assistant Commissioner for Preservation Finance, to discuss HPD's work related to senior housing and accessibility. Supporting older adults is a top priority for the administration, and we know that access to safe and stable housing remains a primary concern for many older New Yorkers. As you all know well, the city is in the midst of a long-standing housing crisis, putting significant strain on low and moderate income seniors. HPD's approach to meeting older New Yorkers' housing needs and preferences is reflected in both Where We Live NYC, the city's fair housing plan released in fall 2020, and Housing Our Neighbors, the administration's blueprint to address housing and homelessness released last spring. The Where We Live NYC plan describes the city's housing investments as designed to empower New Yorkers with realistic choices to live in thriving, integrated neighborhoods. We committed to increasing opportunity for all New Yorkers by promoting housing choice, the choice to move into a different neighborhood, or the choice to stay in a neighborhood, even as it changes. These commitments guide our approach to serving older New Yorkers. Like the general population, older New Yorkers are an incredibly diverse group of people with a wide range of housing needs and preferences who deserve choice in the housing market. While our affordable housing production receives a lot of attention, many older New Yorkers are focused on safely remaining in their homes. For this reason, in Housing Our Neighbors, the administration committed to pursuing new strategies to better meet the needs of older New Yorkers. HPD continues to develop new affordable housing to alleviate our current housing crisis. Many of the residents of our new construction homes are older New Yorkers who apply to live in newly constructed affordable housing, either independently or in intergenerational households. We also develop age-restricted housing specifically for seniors. Through our range of new construction programs, we enable older New Yorkers to choose whether they want to live among other seniors in buildings that offer targeted services or as part of an intergenerational and integrated community. Through HPD's Housing Ambassador Program, we support New Yorkers, including older adults, navigate the lottery process to remove obstacles or challenges they may experience, including using the Housing Connect system. Many low and moderate income older adults want to remain in their current homes and neighborhoods, but need more support to be able to do so safely and affordably. These New Yorkers benefit from HPD-funded building rehabilitation projects. As part of these projects, we conduct an integrated physical needs assessment to identify building system needs, many of which make buildings safer for all tenants and allow them to remain in their homes. In addition, HPD's Aging in Place initiative allows all tenants to identify in-unit modifications necessary to continue living safely in their homes, such as grab bars and non-slip surfaces, which are then made at no cost to the tenants. Our homeowner help desk provides access to counseling and resources, and the Home Fix program assists low and moderate income homeowners in 1 to 4 family properties fund home repairs by providing low-cost financing. Approximately 45% of the homeowners served through the Home Fix program are seniors. The Senior Citizen Rent Increase Exemption SCREE program freezes the rent for eligible seniors living in rent-regulated apartments and is a critical tool in the city's toolbox to help older adults remain in their homes. Over the past decade, the city and the state have worked to expand income eligibility for both programs and conduct extensive outreach and assistance to help qualifying households enroll in and stay qualified for the programs. In Housing Our Neighbors, the administration committed to working with partners across the city to ensure more eligible individuals benefit from SCREE and to help current recipients with annual recertification. The Senior Citizen Homeowners Exemption, administered by the Department of Finance, is an example of one property tax program available to help older low-income homeowners. Because older New Yorkers have a wide variety of needs and preferences, we are working in coordination with other city agencies to ensure that low and moderate income seniors have meaningful choice in the housing market. The City Council has also played an invaluable role in improving access to housing programs and resources for older adults. I especially want to thank Chair Hudson, Chair Sanchez, and Speaker Adams for their strong leadership in this critical area. We are encouraged by the progress we have been able to achieve in recent years and excited to see the results of our strong commitments going forward. Turning to the legislation being heard today, HPD supports the intent of Intro 322 and works with our sister agencies to ensure that older adults and persons with disabilities can live safely in their homes. Local, state, and federal fair housing laws do require owners to make reasonable accommodations. We look forward to having further conversations with the Council and all the relevant agencies about reasonable accommodations. For Intro 584, HPD works in coordination with our sister agencies to ensure that tenants at risk of eviction have as much information as possible and access to resources. HPD does not, however, have a role in the eviction process and does not receive notice of evictions, complicating our role in this legislation. We also want to ensure that interventions to support New Yorkers living with disabilities do not impede their right to privacy or put them at greater risk for any reason. HPD is still reviewing Intro 676 as it was only added to the hearing a few days ago. Many of the modifications identified in the bill are already required under the law and incorporated into the building code. As currently drafted, however, the bill treats both new construction and rehabilitation the same, though these different types of projects raise very different accessibility challenges and require different solutions. We're also concerned that a more nuanced approach that takes into account the features of the building, the needs of the tenants, and the specific disabilities residents have may be more appropriate for solving the challenges presented here, rather than an across-the-board requirement. We look forward to further conversations with the Council about this bill and the current requirements of the Fair Housing Act, the Rehabilitation Act, and Chapter 11 of the Building Code before moving this bill forward. We're also still reviewing Intro 375, and while serving people living with disabilities is a huge priority for the agency, some of this information is available to HPD and some of it is harder to track. We look forward to working with the Council on the details of this bill. Thank you for your time, and I am happy to answer any questions.
Good afternoon, Chair Sanchez, Chair Hudson, and members of the Committees on Housing and Buildings and Aging. I am Guillermo Patino, Deputy Commissioner for External Affairs at the New York City Department of Buildings. I am pleased to testify before the committees in support of the intent of Intro 141, which would increase the accessibility of buildings by requiring that more buildings install automatic doors. Currently, the New York City Building Code requires that a wide range of buildings that are open to the public, including hotels, museums, movie theaters, businesses, and department stores, install automatic doors if they meet a certain occupant load threshold that is generally between 200 to 300 people. Intro 141 would expand upon this existing requirement by mandating automatic doors at more types of buildings, including those occupied as assisted living facilities, adult homes, and as apartments. However, this bill would require that automatic doors be installed regardless of what the occupant load threshold will be for a particular building. The absence of an occupant load threshold may result in construction costs that are disproportional for smaller projects, including those pursued by small businesses. As such, this proposal merits further discussion with the business community and with other stakeholders to understand how their projects may be impacted. We look forward to working with the committees on this issue. Thank you for the opportunity to testify before you, and we welcome any questions you might have.
Thank you all so much for your testimonies. I'm going to get started with some questions, but before I do, I just want to recognize that we've been joined by Council Members Brewer, Mealy, and Marte. So at last month's Committee on Aging hearing on improving older New Yorkers' access to city services, DFTA testified that the New York City Cabinet for Older New Yorkers would hold its inaugural meeting in late September, which you mentioned in your testimony occurred on September 21st. Per the mayor's press office, the cabinet first met on, well, this says the 22nd, but perhaps it was the 21st, either the 21st or the 22nd. But what is the meeting schedule going forward?
So yes, they met on September 21st. That was the principals cabinets. There were 17 agencies represented. Going forward, there will be each commissioner was asked to appoint liaisons, and the liaisons are going to be meeting later this week. That'll be their first meeting to really dig into some of the work. The principals will meet on a quarterly basis. The next meeting is scheduled for December 6th. I believe, and then it'll be the third month of every quarter. The goal is to have something report ready in June of next year.
Thank you so much.
And the liaisons will be meeting regularly.
More frequently than the third month of every quarter?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. And what are the cabinet's priorities, and who sets the agenda?
So the agenda hasn't been set yet. Again, we just met a couple weeks ago. After this week's meeting, I think we'll have more of a sense, but there will be topics that you would expect: public safety, housing, transportation, health, social services, I would expect. Each of those work groups will look at it through what is existing policy, what is legislation, what are some services being offered now, what are some obstacles, and what are some innovations. So each of those work categories will then be addressed by policy, legislation, et cetera.
Thank you. Can you describe any silos and planned joint action and innovation as it relates to housing concerns for older adults?
Well, certainly the aim of this cabinet is to eliminate those silos, bring a number of folks together, work groups, interagency staff. We've also got the advisory council. We're looking to leverage resources and shape current and future services to better serve older New Yorkers.
Thank you. Over the 2020 to 2023 fiscal year period, HPD's capital commitment plan allocated $508.3 million to finance senior affordable housing units through the SARA program and the HUD 202 program. These funds are expected to produce 1,000 units of senior affordable housing units financed annually over that time period, which comes to an average of $508,000 per unit. Is this the typical cost per unit created, and has the cost been significantly impacted by supply chain issues?
Thank you for that question. So the typical cost per unit historically has been around that mark, but of late we have seen increasing costs because of some of the issues that you've identified. Also, it's become more challenging given interest rate increases in this current environment, as well as all the inflationary pressures that we all know about from the news on construction costs. So costs have increased. We obviously endeavor to try to keep them in check as much as possible and maintain levels of production.
Thank you. And then I just actually wanted to address a couple questions from your testimony, if I may. You mentioned pursuing new strategies to better meet the needs of older New Yorkers, and I'm wondering what those strategies are.
Thank you for that question. So we did talk about the fact that in the blueprint, both in Where We Live and in the blueprint, we made a number of strategies, and this is really about making sure that all New Yorkers, especially and including the most vulnerable New Yorkers, have choice in the housing market. So that's a wide range of programs. Some of them that we committed to, for example, in the blueprint, is increasing enrollment in SCRE and DRE. We are particularly investing in and accelerating the creation of supportive housing. We're going to be filling in the housing service continuum to serve a wider range of at-risk populations. We're also putting NYCHA at front and center. So NYCHA, 40% of the residents there are The households are headed by older adults, supporting the creation of accessory dwelling units for a number of reasons, but in particular, there are older homeowners who would really benefit from that extra space, being able to access extra income, but also many people who might be able to bring an older adult in to live with them, maybe a family member. So there are a wide range of programs that we are investing in and supporting and building up.
Thank you. And you also mentioned supporting New Yorkers, including older adults, to navigate the lottery process to remove obstacles or challenges. How do you plan to do that? Remove the obstacles and challenges specifically.
So we are investing in and have been building up a network of housing ambassadors. That program has been growing over time, and we now have 51 housing ambassadors across the city. 2 are specifically dedicated to serving people with disabilities. They also serve New Yorkers in more than 60 locations and in 20 languages across the organizations. They offer in-person and remote assistance in new ways thanks to the ready-to-rent funding. More availability, accessible materials, tailored appointments. We offer free one-on-one housing-related financial counseling for housing applicants. We've made a big push for increased language access and accessibility across all of our resources. And we've been training developers bi-monthly around their obligations, both under the Fair Housing Law and assisting residents as well.
Thank you. And then the last one from your testimony. How many people take advantage of the Aging in Place initiative per year?
So for Aging in Place, this is a survey that we do in all of our preservation programs. All tenants get the survey, and we worked on that survey in coordination with the Department for the Aging. In designing the survey, and tenants get to select in-unit modifications that they would like to add to their homes. The number of tenants who have been served thus far is, I think, over 1,300 households.
Sorry, did you say 1,300 households or 1,300
Yes.
people?
Households.
Thank you. Decades of gentrification have pushed out longtime residents who built neighborhoods in favor of new, wealthier people. Renters, representing 2/3 of all residents, are most impacted, with Black and Latinx New Yorkers impacted at higher rates. Does the city track older adults who have been displaced? Can you estimate how many have been displaced annually over the past 5 years?
So unfortunately, tracking this on an individual level would be incredibly difficult. We're constantly working to collect as much information as we can about what's going on to best tailor our programs. We added a number of questions to this past New York City Housing and Vacancy Survey, for example, that we're going to continue to ask households over the course of the decade to better understand their housing stability challenges and needs. It's going to help us identify patterns, for example, so that we can better tailor our programs and our resources. We've also been working with the council and with the Department of City Planning to create the Equitable Development Data Explorer and Displacement Risk Map. Sorry, it's a bit of a mouthful, to provide more information and better inform our development work and other programming.
Okay, so I just want to clarify that you don't have any way of identifying older adults who've been displaced by gentrification.
So displacement could include everything from a formal eviction, which is something that we can track, to an increase in rent that causes a tenant to not re-sign their lease. And so there are things that, many sort of ways that this can happen that would never result in a formal action that we'd receive notice of. But what we are doing is focused on the patterns so that we can try to get ahead of some of that and better tailor our responses so that we can support New Yorkers before they get to that point.
Perfect. So that's a perfect segue to my next question, which hopefully you can elaborate a little bit on what you just said. So what's the city doing to minimize or even eliminate the displacement of older adults in gentrifying neighborhoods?
So DSS and DFTA may also be able to speak to some of their efforts here. HPD is working with cities across the agencies across the city, and we use a range of tools to help all New Yorkers, and particularly older adults who may be experiencing housing instability. We have programs like building and preserving more rental housing that we all talk about a lot, especially affordable housing. Programs like SCREE. We also want to help homeowners stay in their homes, so we have things like Home Fix and tax programs like PTA and SHE. We're trying to get ahead of harassment and displacement through things like anti-harassment programs, the CONH program, for example, Partners in Preservation. Funding tenant organizing, right to counsel, collecting more information about older New Yorkers and their housing additions through the NYCHVS, so we can look at this really from a systematic range.
Thank you. And First Deputy Commissioner Agnabeni, did you have anything you wanted to add?
Yeah, I would just add that I agree with HPD that it is a daunting exercise to try to understand citywide housing issues. But what we do with clients that are known to DFTA, whether they're attending an older adult center, receiving home delivered meals, in our NORCs, et cetera, if we are aware of issues, any issues around housing security, we will take action and either refer them on or provide services, support services.
Thank you. And then continuing with you, at last month's aging hearing, the DFTA commissioner mentioned that universal design is not part of every new development that the city is looking at. What are the city's plans for the future of universal design? Or I suppose I was referring to our last hearing, but maybe it's a question better suited for HPD.
I'll start and then I'll turn it over. Certainly, we're in constant conversations with HPD about older adult awareness, things that we recognize in older adults. As far as universal design, we do talk, and for example, lighting and acoustics, so people can see and hear better through their apartment. In the housing blueprint, there was a section on older adults, which we contributed to as well.
Thank you. Did you want to add to it or no?
Yeah, I will say that many of our programs already are covered by, much of our work is covered by state, local, federal laws and incorporated into the building code, such that a lot of the aspects of this bill are already standard across these programs. It is important, we've talked about throughout, that there are a range of New Yorkers living with disabilities and the range of needs that they have, and we want to make sure that however we address this, that we're best serving that range of needs, and so that New Yorkers have that choice. And so we want to make sure that we're appreciating the differences between new construction and preservation housing and the types of disabilities that New Yorkers are living with. So we look forward to further conversations with you about this bill.
Thank you. I have another question before I turn it over to Chair Sanchez, but I do also want to acknowledge that we've been joined by Council Member Aviles. At last month's aging hearing, DFTA also testified that it works with HPD to address affordable housing and tenant protection issues impacting older adults, including on the housing plan and new developers. Can you expand on the ways in which DFTA has influenced the mayor's new housing plan as it relates to older adult homelessness, evictions, the creation of new housing, and ensuring its affordability and accessibility, and wraparound services?
Sorry, is that a question
Do you want me to
HPD or DFTA?
Both. I'll just repeat the question. At last month's aging hearing, DFTA also testified that it works with HPD to address affordable housing and tenant protection issues impacting older adults, including on the housing plan and new developers. Can you expand on the ways in which DFTA has influenced the mayor's new housing plan? And I have two follow-ups, but I can wait.
Well, as I said, we've contributed to the section on older adults in the housing blueprint. As far as support services, we do have the older adults tests, the tenant eviction support services program. These are for older adults that are at risk of being evicted, and they are on the court calendar. We will go out to them and assess if there are any other underlying reasons behind the eviction: mental health, health in general, hoarding issues.
And then just specifically as it relates to older adult homelessness, evictions, the creation of new housing, and ensuring its affordability and accessibility, as well as any wraparound services.
Good afternoon, chairs and council members. I'll speak maybe very briefly to the eviction side of the house. As the first deputy shared, we work close. I'm from the Department of Social Services, specifically on the HRA side of the house. We have our Office of Civil Justice that works very closely with the Office of Court Administration to ensure that there's legal counsel provided to anyone who may need it. There are a number of things that we do to ensure that folks are aware of the program. For where there's a petition, there's a case pending. The court will send out information about legal services providers to make sure that that's available. If we also have intake days at the court, so if someone appears before the court, and they will make sure that we get counsel assigned. So we work closely with DFTA, as the first deputy shared, where they have lists of individuals who may need services. Our collaboration with our Office of Civil Justice is to ensure that the legal representation is there for folks who are facing eviction.
I'll just add that this is entirely what Housing Our Neighbors is about. All of it is about providing more stable housing for the New Yorkers who need it. And we know that we're in the midst of a housing crisis. There are so many people throughout New York City who are feeling this crunch. So this is what the plan is about.
Thank you. Chair Sanchez?
Thank you so much, Chair. All right, so my first two questions are actually in follow-up to Councilmember Hudson's initial questions. The first one is on the Housing Ambassador Program. So the organization that I mentioned in my opening remarks is a housing ambassador. And I hear from them, I hear from other housing ambassadors across the city that even despite their calling, right, their contract with HPD being to serve those who may face barriers due to the digital divide, there's still not enough. There's still immense barriers that those tenants face in applying. So what analog options, if any, exist for seniors, right? Is there any way that before a senior arrives to a housing ambassador, for instance, they have access to a paper application so they can be more prepared? What options do they have?
So older New Yorkers, any New Yorkers can request a paper application and submit a paper application. That can either be that someone prints it out for them if they're at their housing ambassador and then they submit it, or they can certainly contact us at HPD and we can help. We have a lottery hotline. That number is 212-863-7900. Generally, I'll say that this is a program that we've been scaling up rapidly for the last few years, and that's really important because there is such extensive need, and we're going to continue investing and innovating and improving, and I took note of your feedback, and we want to continue working on these things, but we'll make sure that there continues to be, I think your word was analog, right, paper and pencil, sort of old-fashioned approaches to submitting these applications. It's always easier and a little quicker that we have invested in the technology that we have, but we want to continue to keep those options open and support the nonprofits who are doing this important work on the front lines, like the housing ambassadors.
Absolutely. So how, other than going to a housing ambassador center, how can folks access the applications? Can our offices print out applications for individuals?
Yes, council members and council member offices and community board staff are huge resources for us, some of which have participated in held individual events, and we can support that, and we look forward to continuing working with you on that.
Okay, thank you. I don't know personally how to print out an application, so I will be following up because it's such a high need. So second follow-up question to Councilmember Hudson regarding the Aging in Place initiative. So how is it that individual older adults are able to access the resources of the Aging in Place initiative?
Before a preservation project begins, a survey is done of all of the tenants across the building. They get the option to elect to have certain modifications. Let's say it's grab bars, and when they elect to have those grab bars installed, it's done at no cost to them. So we do it across all tenants. It's offered to in that building.
And how are the buildings receiving a particular financing help from HPD?
Yeah,
or is it any tenant, any building in the city of New York?
It's in our preservation programs.
Okay. And so what about tenants who live outside of HPD's preservation programs? Do they have access to universal design type of interventions?
Well, I do want to defer to my colleagues at CCHR to talk about a little in more depth about tenants' rights under the law, because there are those there are those rights. Okay.
Hi, I'm Joanne Cameron-Ford from the Commission on Human Rights. Thank you for your time and the bills and resolution today. So following up not on universal design, but on the rights of tenants with disabilities, under the human rights law, landlords are required, either if they know about or if a tenant requests a reasonable accommodation on the basis of their disability, which is broadly defined under our law to include physical, mental, cognitive impairments. Landlords are required to engage in a good faith dialogue, or a cooperative dialogue is the legal term in our law, to identify the specific limitations and needs and to see what are the ways that those can be accommodated. And similar to the program that HPD is discussing, the landlord is required to absorb those costs. The instances where a landlord is not required to make a reasonable accommodation is if they can show that specific accommodations present an undue hardship. So that can be most often financial, but we see that really more often in cases of things like ramps or structural modifications than we do in some of the accommodations which are contemplated in these bills and which are also often ordered by the Commission in the cases that we see.
Thank you for that. And do you know what number of calls CCHR may have received in the last year for these kind of complaints?
Sure. So I should note that these things can come to us in many ways. So we have actually a dedicated project called Project Equal Access, which is open to any New Yorkers seeking a potential modification. So they can contact Project Equal Access. Or if people come to the Commission seeking to file a complaint because they think they've been discriminated against, that's another way. So we receive many thousands of inquiries per year regarding specifically disability and housing. It makes up about 30% of the calls that we see related to housing discrimination. So,
and what percentage of your calls are housing discrimination cases?
What percentage of the calls are housing? I want to say about 10%. That's an average year over year. Employment protections are the biggest area. Housing is second, and disability discrimination is prominent in all the areas covered by our law.
Thank you so much. That is a big number. So next series of questions. According to the mayor's management report that was released earlier in September, HPD is far beyond the production targets, with only 16,042 housing starts to date and a projected 18,000 for the year versus a targeted 25,000. So what is happening at HPD? Why are we not achieving our housing start goals? And what is the city's plan for meeting the growing need?
Thank you for that question. We are committed to building and preserving as much affordable housing as we can, but we're in the midst of a refocusing on the people that we are serving, reducing administrative burdens to speed New Yorkers' access to our programs, and a real focus on how we can best serve them over unit counting. We're going to continue to be opportunistic, but we have a range of programs and priorities for serving New Yorkers, as we discussed in testimony, that are critically important. All of these, we want to make sure that we need to ensure that we're giving New Yorkers meaningful choice in the housing market and in the homes that they choose. So some of that's going to be the new construction of affordable housing. Some of it's going to be preservation of affordable housing. Some of it is helping New Yorkers stay in their homes, and I heard some of you speak about that in your opening testimony. So it's a really diversified approach that meets those where we live fair housing goals we talked about in giving choice, and the administration's priorities talked about in the blueprint about really focusing in on people and making sure that when we are serving them, we are serving their specific needs and we're doing it well. So this is not a backing off of attacking this crisis. This is really an investment in that direction.
So I hear you saying that the priorities are changing, the ways that HPD is going to be tackling the housing crisis for seniors, for the disabled, for all New Yorkers in different categories. The priorities are changing, and yet I'm hearing from the advocacy community that HPD is also not spending down capital that had been planned to be spent this year. So can you help me understand how shifting priorities means that we have to slow down production? I mean, it almost seems that we need any and all kinds of production in the city of New York, and we should not be slowing. We should be doing everything that we can. Is this related to the staffing crisis?
I think there's a couple of things that we're talking about. One thing is that we are coming out of the pandemic. There has been a lot of talk about staffing, though I will say there are maybe isn't enough focus on the amazing public servants who have decided to stay at HPD and are working incredibly hard every day. Our numbers are down, but not because of the fact that HPD is taking our foot off of the gas. There is both the fact that we're coming out of this really difficult time and we're working to staff up, to gear up with new programs and new administration. And we're also making sure that as we do it, we're not just focusing on top line numbers, we're really focusing on how we do each of those things, how we build, how we preserve, how we serve people, and that's going to be reflected across all of our work.
And what interventions is HPD, and yes, agreed fully, thank you to those who have stayed, right? But at the same time, those project managers, those staffers who are still at HPD are struggling, right? Because they're carrying a heavier burden. So what is HPD doing to recruit further? Are there any city or state regulations that are in the way for HPD's hiring?
We're not concerned about that. We're staffing up. It's the beginning of an administration. We have great teams of people who are going above and beyond. I'm here represented by a huge number of people who got us here today working to prepare for this hearing. That we do not, we're not concerned about that piece, and we're working on it now.
Okay. We will continue to check back in on these fronts. So in fiscal year 2022, HPD created and preserved 1,459 units reserved for low-income seniors, representing 56% fewer than the previous fiscal year. According to the Mayor Management Report, this is due to a one-time increase of almost 1,000 additional units of senior housing resulting from the conclusion of the privately financed affordable senior housing program. Can you share a little bit more about how this was working and what the future outlook is? So, for example, what is the median cost to create a unit? You mentioned to my colleague about $500,000. Is that the case for all senior affordable units? How does the cost of creating and preserving a unit reserved for low-income older adults compared to the typical unit reserved for a low-income New Yorker? And overall, how does the annual creation and preservation of units reserved for low-income older adults correlate with the need?
So there were a number of questions there. I'm going to try to tease them all out.
And I'm happy to repeat them if you need.
Yeah, so I'll start by getting some parts of it. So in terms of the ending of the PFAS program and the reimagining of AIRS, yes, right, we're working on that, and we think this can be a helpful tool reimagined, and different parts of the city we're working with agencies across the city on that. Broadly, we don't have individual program-specific targets, but we will be reporting out through the MMR on our production, including on our senior housing production, including on the various ways that we're going to serve older New Yorkers, which involves new construction, also involves preservation, aging in place, SCREE, this wide range of programs that we have. Some of that is separate from the costs, though Brendan did earlier discuss the fact that there has been, and I think I heard in some of your question, an increase in the costs and how those costs break out between new construction of age-restricted housing versus new construction of sort of inclusive intergenerational housing. So those are somewhat separate issues, but we can also speak to the costs as well.
Just adding on to what I shared before, I think one of the key distinctions is with SARA new construction, which is 100% age restricted, we use a different set of funding sources, which triggers a different set of requirements, including the requirement for the payment of Davis-Bacon prevailing wages that's triggered by the use of home funds and project-based Section 8 vouchers, which is a strategic use of resources and makes a lot of sense in our mind from a policy point of view, given that it enables us to serve seniors at any income based on where they are, even if their incomes change over time. but it does trigger labor requirements that mean that the projects tend to be more expensive on a per square foot basis as compared to a similar program, a similar project with a similar number of units. We do produce as well age-restricted units in set-asides within other programs, for instance, the ELA program, in which case, the costs are more akin to the typical costs of an ELA program, which on a per square foot basis tend to be lower than the SARA program, given the labor component.
Got it. Thank you. And can you explain the way that the Affordable Independent Residences for Senior Housing program works? Are we gaining more affordability through this program, or are we just converting units that would have been affordable to senior units?
So that's a bit of a zoning question, and I specifically am not a planner, but part of why we want to make sure we're getting as much as we can out of the AIRS program. So the city is looking at that. The agencies across the city are working together to make sure that we're doing exactly what you're saying and that we're getting as much affordability as we can and not just trading out. So certainly that's the intent, has always been the intent, and we're going to continue to invest in that.
Okay. Thank you. And that is the concern, right? That we need to be getting more and more and more. We put so much funding, so much capital dollars into these projects. We are giving zoning bonuses. We're doing all of this to incentivize the production of these units. So we need to make sure that we're growing the pot and not simply shifting the categories. Do you know how many units have been created through the AIRS program?
We have some tracking on that, but some of the AIRS units have been created in units that are not otherwise city financed, so we don't have numbers on that today.
Okay. And what is the present pipeline with respect to both production and preservation writ large, ELA, SARA, AIRS? What is the current pipeline for units reserved for older adults?
So I take your question to be about age restricted, because any of our units can serve and do serve households with older adults or intergenerational households. We don't have a program specific pipeline, and so I can't answer that question, but we are continuing, as we've said, to invest and be opportunistic and build as many units as we can. And our goal really is aligned with our fair housing goals, as we've talked about, to have housing available for all New Yorkers across the city in the neighborhoods that work best for them, the homes that work best for them. So that's going to be the same goal for older adults, for all New Yorkers.
Okay, so the agency does not have goals for how much specifically age-restricted units are produced in a year?
We don't have a target for that. We'll be reporting out on it as we produce, but part of this is about being opportunistic, finding the best examples, the best areas for building for certain populations, and making sure that we're giving everyone an opportunity to get the best housing for them.
How many age-restricted units were produced in the last year?
One second. I think we'll have to get back to you on across the total programs. Sorry about that.
Okay. We'll look forward to that. And I must say, it's a little alarming to not have a goal when 1 million, New Yorkers are older adults and only growing. We have to be, intentional about how we are responding to the crisis for older adults in New York City. My last question is for the Deputy Commissioner, and it is a local issue. But with respect to our senior centers in our communities, they're really important navigation centers for all of these issues, and particularly for navigating housing issues. I have had a closed senior center for, I believe, over 2 years, the Bronx Morris Heights Senior Center. So I look forward to hearing and working with you all to reopen the center and make sure that our seniors are being served. Do you have a sense of timeline of that senior center reopening today?
Well, I know that we're aware of the facade collapse and the building being closed. We're working with the provider to find a new location, and we can follow up with your office.
Okay, thank you, Deputy Commissioner. We've heard conflicting things from the provider and from the agency, and we just want to make sure we're on the same page about, identifying a location and getting it back up and running. Thank you. With that, I'm going to call on my colleagues. So, Councilmember Schulman.
Yes, thank you very much. I want to thank Chairs Hudson and Sanchez for this very important hearing today. So one of the questions I wanted to ask, can you describe the ways in which sites are identified for older adult housing, and specifically what consideration is given for walkability and accessible transportation?
Thank you for that question. I alluded to this earlier. Some of HPD's work, especially over recent years as we have less and less city-owned land, is about being opportunistic and working with outside partners to develop where we can and when we can. It's really important for a huge range of New Yorkers to have things like transit accessibility, walkability, et cetera. So we certainly think about those things, but we're also working with our agencies, our sister agencies, to invest in that for everyone in New York, and those are commitments in where we live. So it's certainly an important thing important part about having a lot of our housing be successful, because there are New Yorkers who are older, there are New Yorkers living with disabilities in all of our housing and housing across the city.
So how are current buildings and construction sites supervised to ensure ADA accessibility compliance is laid out in the building code?
Thank you for that question, Councilmember. So the building code has a chapter dedicated to accessibility, and design professionals are required to comply with those accessibility requirements when drawing up plans for a construction project. And let me just provide some background on the accessibility requirements in the code. So they apply to new construction just like all of the other construction code requirements, but they're also triggered for any alteration. So if you're altering an existing space, you're going to have to comply with the latest accessibility requirements in the construction code. So they do apply very broadly. And then the accessibility requirements are enforced by DOB at the time of plan exam. So when construction documents are submitted to the department for approval, all of those construction documents must comply with the accessibility requirements if applicable. And then also upon complaint from a member of the public, should we receive a complaint that an accessibility requirement is not being met, we would go out, inspect, and then enforce as well at that time. And then I'll also mention that we do perform regular training for the industry on accessibility requirements. So our new set of construction codes are going into effect in November. So we've been doing a lot of training for design professionals on that new set of codes as well.
Now, thank you. Is there a way to determine the renters who are older adults in especially rent-stabilized apartment buildings that may be in need of their apartments being retrofitted or things like that? Because I know there are a lot of older adults, particularly people who are single, who might need that. And so is there a way to make that determination and to help them out?
I think this question crosses over a number of our agencies, but one of the things that we do keep in mind is both that there is a wide network of programs across these agencies to support older New Yorkers or New Yorkers living with disabilities who reach out and say that they need support. That's something also we work with this network of housing ambassadors, nonprofits across the city, your offices, to identify anyone when they're in need. But there are also privacy concerns, and that is a significant issue and sort of obstacle here. But we certainly, across the agencies, are working together to support New Yorkers when they need it.
Okay, and if I can just say one quick thing, I know my time is up. Is there a way that you could give us, like, for example, I sit on zoning and franchise, so a lot of developments come before me if there's a cheat sheet of some kind or fact sheet so that we can ask the appropriate questions. of developers when they come to us in terms of accessibility and older adults?
Let's follow up after the hearing. We'd love to talk more.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember. Councilmember Brewer?
Thank you very much. I know you're all superstars, but Guillermo Patino is a superstar. I just want to let you know that. For many years, 24/7, 7 days a week, and I appreciate it. On SCREE, I know you've talked a lot about SCREE. We all know SCREE. What's the number that you think still deserve, are eligible, and what are we all trying to do? I've been trying for many years, so maybe there's some new tricks to get more people to sign up. Do you have any sense of the number who are still eligible?
Ken Grace, New York City Department of Finance. There are currently 135,111 households that were eligible in the most recent year that the data was complete in 2019.
So those are eligible, but how many are on then? So I'm trying to figure out how many people we still need to get on.
So currently there are 71,665 SCREE. That includes the HPD.
Right.
And there's 135,111 households that are eligible.
Okay, we have a lot to go. Thank you very much, that's helpful. Second, you go to the hospital, you come back, you have steps, you have no place to go. Do you talk to the hospital social workers to see if that's an issue, or is it just, they have to deal with it? You go to the hospital, you can't walk, you live in a walk-up, you come back, and I'm just wondering if the city pays any attention to the hospitals with that issue. That would be a district question, perhaps, I don't know. Somebody needs to talk to the hospitals about this.
I can't say that we talk to the hospitals now, but I would say that the newly formed cabinet is an opportunity that since Department of Health is there, H&H is there, it's an opportunity that we can certainly look into.
Okay, I don't know what to do about it, but it's an issue. Next, one
So
shot.
can I also just, sorry.
Go ahead.
Councilwoman, just to jump in on CCHR, we have offices in each of the 5 boroughs and educating not only tenants, but duty bearers, obligation holders, landlords, public accommodations about their obligations under the human rights law is something we do. We do it with health and hospitals, we do it with DOHMH, and we work very closely, like many of these agencies, with some of the community groups that serve these folks. So we do talk to hospitals, not on an individual basis, but about the obligations for sure under the human rights law.
I just think it would be a data point, if there is one. I don't know. My guess is yes, because I get it all the time. But it would be a good data point to have to see if it's something. I don't know how you address it, other than renting rooms nearby to try to get the person in a shape that she can walk up 5 stories. That's what's going on. Quickly, one shot. That's just not just you, but your rent doesn't get paid. You don't have a third party. Is that a legal issue? Is there somebody paying attention? That's one question. And then wait list. You have a data point on Phelps House and everybody else has got this massive wait list. Is that something that somebody keeps track of for the senior housing, for the 202s and all the other places where these massive wait lists exist? Does somebody keep track of those? It gives you a sense of where we're at in terms of the need. I'm a data nut, so I like data. Nobody keeps track of that? That would be for
We
that.
appreciate data nuts here, and we'd love to follow up with you afterwards. I'm just not familiar with those projects you're referencing, and so we can get back to you on what the specifics are after the
Okay,
hearing.
and then the courts now have not only data, because I did this, not only data for evictions, which we all had already. God forbid, we don't want those to take place, but also the pending evictions. ANHD's data task force has that. Is that something that you're paying attention to for seniors? In other words, God forbid, you get a notice, seniors what happens is if nobody comes from, God help us, APS, nobody wants APS to show up, but that's another story. So you have APS or somebody shows up, but you don't pay the rent because you have challenges. So you're gonna get evicted perhaps. Is that something that the DFTA or somebody's paying attention to? Because seniors don't have family, they don't know that they're supposed to pay the rent, the bills pile up, et cetera.
Yes,
that
Councilmember.
is something that the courts know in advance because the owner is filing. Go ahead.
Yeah. Yes, Councilmember, that's something we pay very close attention to. We work really closely with the Office of Court Administration to make sure that we are coordinating very closely in terms of the legal providers and the information going out to folks who have petitions before the court. And we also make, as I said earlier in response, we also have intake days with the court, the Office of Court Administration, to make sure that we are present and that folks get representation. So our right to counsel is the place where we are paying attention to this area of concern.
We know there's a problem with right to counsel, though, because there aren't enough lawyers. So, and I know that you think there's enough staffing in the agencies, but I know there isn't enough staffing in the agencies because I have too many friends who work in the agencies. So you really need to figure out either more money for the staffing or something, because right now you cannot build affordable housing because there's nobody at HPD to be responsive. Just, that's fact.
To be clear, we're ramping up with staffing and appreciate your feedback on that.
Thank you. I don't believe it, but thank you.
Thank you, council members. I wanted to ask a few more questions. So just going back to the point of accessibility and making the current housing stock that the city owns more accessible, I want to point out that 410,000 New Yorkers age 65 plus are living with Alzheimer's disease, and that number is projected to grow 12% by 2025. Almost 2/3 of Americans with Alzheimer's are women, and older Black Americans are twice as likely as older white Americans to have Alzheimer's or another dementia. Well, excuse me. While accessible housing for many older adults may refer to certain physical attributes, older adults with Alzheimer's or another type of dementia have other specific accessibility needs, mostly memory care. Can you describe the ways in which the city is working to increase accessibility in housing for older New Yorkers with Alzheimer's or another dementia, especially knowing the increase in that population that we're expected to see by 2025?
Thank you for that question. And we agree, the range of New Yorkers living with disabilities or various specific needs that we need to address is really important, and so we're committed to doing that across the population. Housing Our Neighbors committed to accelerating our goal of creating 15,000 supportive homes by 2028. We're also making process and policy changes to reduce the administrative burdens and get people housed more quickly. And we're leveraging partnerships across housing and social service agencies to explore new models of housing with on-site services. So all of those are really important investments and commitments that we're making towards people living with a range of specific needs.
Thank you. And thank you, and I appreciate that. And I just want to sort of reiterate, the increase in the older adult population that we're going to be experiencing, and we're really just not prepared. And so the needs vary and range, not just physical accessibility, but other types of supportive services. So I appreciate that you all are thinking about that, and I hope that the city, will actually be prepared for this boom in population, older adult population. We went into a little bit earlier about tracking, your inability to track some specific data points, but then the ways in which you do track other data points. So I just wanted to get on the record, does HPD or the city engage in any tracking of the housing status of older adults, specifically as it relates to being unhoused, at imminent risk of losing housing, fleeing domestic violence, at risk of homelessness? So, for example, low income, lacking resources or support networks, et cetera, stably housed, and home ownership, including vulnerability of deed theft. Like, how granular are your data points?
Well, so I can speak for HPD.
Okay.
So we generally don't track individual people for some of the reasons that we said. There are certain privacy concerns. There are certain ways in which we are or are not, as an agency specifically, involved in some of these processes. So that data is not always accessible to us, and there are privacy reasons or obstacles why we can't get access to it. But HPD is working to better understand patterns, which can help us better tailor and improve upon our current programs and resources, as I mentioned earlier, including through the NYCHVS. We've started collecting and are going to be tracking over the decade, and we think will put us in a much better position to, as you said, be prepared as the population continues to get older and change. I would defer to my other colleagues about individual referrals.
Yeah, as I said before, we do the clients that are known to DFTA, we have opportunity to gather this information, provided they share it with us, whether it's domestic violence or anything else. It would be voluntary to share it.
Thank you. I just want to note that we've been joined by Councilmember Salamanca. And then Chair Sanchez got into some of the numbers in terms of planning for senior housing or age-restricted housing. And I was wondering what the geography of all current housing reserved for older New Yorkers is. Where are the units across the 5 boroughs?
So there are units across all 5 boroughs, and we can follow up with the specific data and provide to you after.
Okay. Thank you. So you referenced Bill 676, which is in relation to requiring a percentage of dwelling units receiving city financial assistance to be universally designed in your testimony. And you said that though you're still reviewing the legislation, new construction and rehabilitation raise very different accessibility challenges and require different solutions. Can you discuss what some of those challenges might be and how this bill would not address them?
Thank you for that question. In new construction versus preservation, there can be physical limitations. Oftentimes, our preservation work has limited scopes of work, and those projects often have limited ability to take on additional debt. Typically, that work is often building-wide, not in-unit modifications. But that being said, a lot of the things that are addressed in this bill are 100% the things that we do on a regular basis in all of these programs. So it's really about getting into the details and the nuance of what we're talking about broadly and in individual cases. As you've mentioned, as we talked about across this hearing, New Yorkers living with disabilities are a very wide range of people with a range of needs and preferences, and we want to make sure that we're addressing that nuance so that people are living in a unit matched with the improvements that they need. And we think that that's really critical here, and so that there's more we can talk about this bill to make sure we're really doing that well.
Yeah, I would love to talk more about it. I mean, the goal is to make new units readily accessible. And I always say with most things, when we plan for the people with the greatest needs, everybody benefits. So I don't see a drawback or a detriment really in having units that are already available and accessible and ready for the people who may need them, whether that's somebody who's currently living in the unit who may not have that immediate need but might have it in the future. Therefore, they would be able to age in place, presumably, or somebody else who might be moving into that unit in the future.
Yeah, one other point is that when tenants are in place, sometimes construction is harder and a tenant has to agree. And so that's another complication for preservation. It's one of the reasons why our Aging in Place program, for the exact reasons you said, was designed the way that it is. So we ask all tenants in the building of which modifications they're interested in. It's not with regards to what their current needs are, and they don't have to prove that, right? So tenants can make that decision for themselves, and we're empowering them to do that, to say, I would like the grab bar, et cetera. So a lot of that is really important. In our new construction program, we are making our units adaptable so that they can easily be changed and we don't end up in that situation down the road, and so that the accommodations that they need are reasonable. Sometimes these things are quite expensive, and so we want to make sure that we're really tailoring the needs of, or the modifications to the needs and desires of the tenant, and we want to make sure we're matching that.
Thank you, I appreciate that. Sorry, one second. I'm going to turn it over to Council Member Aviles, who has a question.
Thank you, chairs. for this hearing today. One of the major constituent complaints that we get in our office are seniors who are looking for homes, seniors on the verge of displacement. How do older adults find accessible information besides housing lotteries on what's available?
Thank you for that question. One of the main ways is through our Housing Ambassador Network. That is a network that we've invested significantly and ramped up pretty quickly. So there are now 51 housing ambassadors in more than 60 locations across the city. Across that network, they can serve people in more than 20 languages, and we have accessible printed materials available for those New Yorkers. That's, of course, for New Yorkers who are looking to move. As you mentioned, many New Yorkers and many older adults want to stay in their homes, and we want to make sure that we're able to meet those New Yorkers' needs as well. Some of those New Yorkers are homeowners. We're really aware of that, and it can be difficult to navigate the range of resources available. So we have housing ambassadors on the renter side for navigating Housing Connect and the lottery. We also have the Homeowner Help Desk, which is an initiative that we are investing in further after a successful pilot, and programs like Home Fix that help New Yorkers make repairs to their homes. And that 45%, I believe, of the homeowners who have been in the Home Fix program or been helped by the Home Fix program so far are older New Yorkers for exactly that reason.
And so how long does it take for, let's say, a housing ambassador to work through a situation? Obviously, I know there's a great variance around that, but just generally, in terms of relocating and finding a new home?
I think it would unfortunately really depend on what the needs of the tenant are and what they're looking to do. Obviously, that's a wide range of things, and so I think it would be really difficult to speak to that. But the goal is for someone to go in and be able to be helped by the housing ambassador really quickly, so there is someone there supporting them. That's just on our side. There are a range of other programs that people can receive assistance from the other agencies.
Yeah, hi. I would add that we have the Aging Connect, which is an information referral call center where older adults can call and speak with an aging specialist about issues. We also have the older adult centers, which function as an entry point for older New Yorkers if they need help with their SCREE applications or HEAP, for example.
Yeah, I guess I need to find where our ambassador is, because on a daily basis, I get so many residents that are in this particular place, and there seems to be not a lot of options. I was curious in terms of beyond SCREE and DREE also, we have a good number of residents in private housing market, generally renting rooms in small homes. What other tools are there to protect those renters from displacement? Besides one-shot deal, which in many circumstances residents have already used but continue to be in very precarious housing situations.
Yeah, I think so from DSS, HRA on the side, so specifically you mentioned the one-shot deal. The other things, we have our network of home-based providers who are all in community. They're nonprofit organizations who, similar to the other programs that my colleague spoke about, their goal is not just financial assistance, but to support folks, whether it's legal assistance or other services, to try to keep people in their homes. So the home-based program is one of the other tools that it's in our toolbox.
And we would certainly love the opportunity to work with your staff and get connected with the housing ambassadors and train folks. So it would be great to follow up afterwards.
Thank you. Councilmember Salamanca?
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair. Good afternoon, everyone. So I'll get straight to it. First, I want to thank both Councilmember Hudson and Sanchez for this hearing on our housing stock and really providing housing for seniors. We do understand that we are in a housing crisis. I'm a huge supporter of the SARA program. In the 6.5 years that I have been in office, we've built in my district alone, I believe, under 1,000 units of 100% affordable housing for seniors, and that support will continue because it is very much needed. Now, just to clarify here, and I know that you're here, Deputy Commissioner McBride, I consider one of the major issues that we have in the lack of housing has to do with the closing of projects and the lack of closing of projects through HPD. I still have projects that I approved 4 years ago, meaning I approved here, we changed the zoning 4 years ago, and HPD has yet to close on these projects. I have one particular project, which is the Whitlock project, where we're talking about 600 units of 100% affordable housing. Because HPD has failed to close on this particular project, the developer or the owner has not been able to keep up with the overhead, and as a result, this piece of land is at its third owner. Meaning, once we do a rezoning here and they sell this piece of land, that new owner does not have to comply with what the council originally agreed to. Meaning that down the block from this project, Amtrak is moving in 2-3 years, this developer can take this land, sell it to a deep pocket developer, and they can build market rate opposed to what we originally agreed to. So please understand my frustration here, where HPD, here we are in the council doing our job, and HPD is not closing on projects. Can you please explain to me why is HPD having such a difficult time in closing on projects that we're rezoning here in the council?
So we would love the opportunity to follow up with you afterwards to talk about individual projects. I am aware of the particular situation that you're mentioning, and we'd be happy to talk more.
I'm sorry, that's not an answer. Why is HPD not closing on projects in a timely basis when we here in the council are closing on, are doing our jobs in rezonings? I have a project that I closed 4 years ago, and HPD has yet closed, and that's just one of many. So can you give us a real answer other than you're gonna follow up? Because I would like an answer on the record.
Unfortunately, I came prepared to talk about senior housing and accessibility. I recognize that there are delays that can be really concerning for everyone. I appreciate your commitment to and shared concern for the housing crisis that we're in. We want to work with all of you and continue to work productively with the council, and I do want the opportunity for us to be able to follow up with you after.
We do have senior housing that we have approved in the council and rezoned and still hasn't closed. Can you answer that?
I can't speak to individual projects. We are working to make it through our pipeline as quickly as we can, and would love the opportunity to talk with you about individual projects afterwards.
Madam Chair, can I ask one more question? No, my time is up. Now, I do understand that there's a HPD staffing crisis. Can you explain to us your vacancy rate at the moment?
Coming out of the pandemic and in the beginning of a new administration in the world that we are in, yeah, there's been a lot of talk about the number of vacancies that we have. We have also been ramping up staffing very quickly, and we have a lot of really hardworking, dedicated people who put a huge amount of work into everything we do every day, including preparing us for this hearing.
HPD staff are, to be honest, they're underpaid, but they're highly valuable, and I understand the work that they do. And they're going to the private sector because the city is not keeping up with their salaries. Is there going to ever be a request from HPD to the council to ask for more money so that we can pay staffers accordingly, so that you can keep them on board, so that we can close on projects?
We are certainly interested in investing in and keeping our staff.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
And now back to Chair Sanchez.
Thank you, Chair. I have a follow-up clarifying question on the cost per unit of senior affordable housing, whether it's Sarah, HUD, or HUD 202 or anything else. What was the total cost of units produced over the past year, and what was the city subsidy portion per unit? I just want to make sure we have the math right, because the 508,000 was for a 4-year capital plan, but then you said 1,000 units were produced annually. So is it 4,000 over 4 years or something else?
So as I'm sure you're aware, Council Member Sanchez, every project has a little bit of a different mix of financing sources and capital sources. Typically, Sarah ranges between 75,000 and 125,000 per unit in subsidy, based on the companion programs that we're using, whether it's a 4% or a 9% tax credit project. But it obviously can vary pretty widely based on the particulars of the project. We can get back to you on what the share of the respective sources are, city capital, federal resources, and other. It's not a figure that we have available right at this moment.
Okay, thank you. I want to recognize that Councilmember Dinowitz has joined us. Councilmember, do you have questions? Okay, so Councilmember Dinowitz.
Good afternoon. You have, been at this hearing before. I've asked a question. I'm going to ask a kind of similar question. It's for HPD. We have, let's say, Mitchell-Lama, Tracy Towers in my building, in my district. They're seeing a 22% rent increase over the next 3 years. I recognize this is about older adults and accessibility. So my question is, do you talk to the Department of Finance? I can tell you why I'm asking. I've asked this before. I've asked this in private and public meetings. People declare their income when they apply for Mitchell-Lama. Every year there's an income affidavit. And you know how old they are. And so what efforts are being made to pre-fill out things like SCREE applications for older adults so that they can be kept in their homes? And this can apply to any apartment, anytime there's an interaction between an older adult and a city agency. Are there any sort of survey questions on any of your city documents or the Department of Finance's city documents where the agencies can kind of talk to each other and say, if we recognize someone's an older adult living in a rent-stabilized unit or living in a Mitchell-Lama, or they're a homeowner, mail them something specifically targeted telling them what they're eligible for, and pre-fill out the applications for them to make it as easy for them as possible. Because I just went online. It's not easy for me. I'm not an older adult yet. I plan to be one day. But if it's not easy for me, I imagine people who didn't grow up with computers and the internet are having a bit of a tough time. So, question, do you talk to other agencies?
Every opportunity we can, we do talk to other agencies. But on your specific question, yes. We SCREE and DREE are priorities that we talked about in the blueprint. And we share your concern and want to make sure that we can increase the number of eligible New Yorkers who are registered and benefiting from this program. And we're really going to make that a focus. It's been something that the city and the state have been working on. And it's a commitment that we're making in the blueprint to ramp up and find all of the ways to do that better.
I appreciate you sharing my concern. I would just appreciate you sharing the information with DOF. We have older adults who are filling out document after document, and it's I'm just struggling to understand that if one agency has the information of an older adult's income and their age, that they can preliminarily say, this person's probably eligible for this, for SCREE. For example, this is just one example. I mean, we can talk about a number of examples. The same is for veterans, people with disabilities, right? These survey questions can be easily added, and then you can talk to other city agencies. It seems like a relatively simple solution for getting more older adults who are eligible to freeze their rent and keep them in their homes in the first place. And this is a question I asked 2 hearings ago, asked it at private meetings with HPD. So I'm wondering if it is being taken seriously, and if it's not, what we can do to move it forward to make sure more of our older adults stay in their homes.
So to answer your question, yes, it is an issue that we're taking seriously. I can't speak today to any of the particular reasons why that specific suggestion has not yet been implemented, but I can certainly follow up on that.
I can add into that. This is Ken from the Department of Finance.
Right,
so we
thank you.
do deal with HPD, and we do speak with them on a regular basis. And we have a brand new outreach team this year that we've been working with council members, with members of the community. We've worked with PEU, specifically for the rent freeze program. I know that we are starting to meet with every single council member to kind of get an idea of what the issues are in each district. We've met with 12 so far. We're going to meet with all 51. And a lot of times the rent freeze program comes up, and we've done all sorts of programs, all sorts of outreach events in targeted neighborhoods. What is a targeted neighborhood? That would be an area that has those apartments that are our rent capped, as well as older adults that would be people that would qualify for those apartments. So we've gone into different neighborhoods in the city. They've given out documents. We've had 300 applications, so it's going very well. It's a program that we've been doing quite a bit this year on that.
Including mine, by the way, and I want to thank you for that. I just think that we could be a lot more efficient and purposeful about the work that we do and the work the city agencies do collaboratively to helping the people who need the most help. I know my time's up, so I want to thank the chairs for holding this hearing and thank you for your answers. Thank you.
I'm going to add something there too. I spoke earlier how the DFTA providers will also help with SCREE applications. And this is a perfect example with HPD and DSS here in buildings, with the mayor's, the cabinet for older New Yorkers that was just formed. This is the kind of conversations that we want to hopefully move forward with this new cabinet.
Thank you so much, Councilmember Dinowitz. Thank you for your responses. Deputy Commissioner, I have just wanting to understand NORCs. So I'm gonna ask you a series of short questions, if you can answer them briefly. What is a NORC?
A NORC is a naturally occurring retirement community. It's where picture a building or a multiple buildings or even almost a neighborhood where over time people have moved in and over time they've aged together, and suddenly you look to your neighbors and you say, we're all above the age of 60. This is a naturally occurring retirement community. It wasn't planned, it just so happened that way.
And is there a threshold number, a percentage of residents in the building that will technically qualify a building as
right.
a NORC?
For a classic NORC, you would have to have at least 350 residents with at least 40% of the households, including an older adult.
You said 350 residents?
350, yes, that's one. A neighborhood NORC would be no more than 2,000 residents, 60 plus, who occupy at least 40% of the households.
Understood. And so in your testimony, you talked about there being 36 NORCs in the city of New York, which sounds really, really low to us. So when was the most recent one identified by DFTA?
In our most recent RFP, we added 8 new NORCs. There are 36 that we fund, and there are 22 that City Council funds.
Got it. And
so there are 4 or 5 dozen NORCs with hundreds of thousands of residents.
Got it. 4 or 5 dozen NORCs. And when was that RFP?
2021.
2021. And what is the process of adding new buildings or new neighborhoods to the list of NORCs?
Well, at this point, they would have to wait for a new RFP to be eligible for funding.
And how does the RFP work?
Every few years, we would look at the construct of the RFP. If there are any significant changes, issue a concept paper with changes. If not, issue a new RFP. The current terms are 3 years with option to renew for 3 years. And prior to this RFP, it had been about 9 years since the previous RFP.
Okay.
For older adult centers in NORCs was released.
So when I think of RFPs, I think about the housing agencies and the type that they issue. So what exactly are you requesting?
So the NORC is the building, right? What we do, we issue an RFP to a nonprofit to go and provide services at the NORC. Similar to an older adult center, right? An older adult center is a place where older adults go to receive services, recreation, education, cultural, congregate meals. A NORC doesn't do meals, but they do provide all of these other services. And what they do that the older adult centers do is they have nursing services.
Understood. So the entity that is responding to the RFP is a service provider.
Yes.
So is it true to say that DFTA relies on the service providing community to understand where there are NORCs in the city of New York? There isn't a separate proactive process looking at data from other city agencies, for instance, to identify NORCs?
Well, a NORC can be so designated, and then they would be eligible to apply. A provider would be eligible to apply to operate services within that NORC.
Okay. So chicken or the egg, which comes first?
Well, I would think Newark would have to be designated and wait for their opportunity to then have a provider apply for RFP and get funds to operate services within that Newark.
Okay, then I go back to my earlier question. How does DFTA designate NORCs? What's the process to designate new NORCs?
Give me a second. So there's the New York City definition of the NORC. As I said, 350 residents with at least 40% of households, including a senior. Complex building has at least 1,500 persons, regardless of the percentage of units they occupy. It's usually lower and middle income as well.
It's usually?
Lower and middle income.
Got it. Okay. Yeah, I mean, the context of all these questions is that we're seeing the senior population is growing at a very fast pace, right? And so given this rate of increase of the older adult population, I think almost all of New York City is going to be considered a NORC by 2040, right? So then an RFP going out every 3 years may not be quick enough, right, to keep up with the aging population. So what are DFTA's plans to ensure that RFPs are being put out in a timely manner to address the need for housing and serving new
Right. So let me just correct that the NORC RFP was put out in 2020 with new contracts to begin 2021.
Okay.
RFPs in general take a lot of time to create, put out. Proposals have to be responded to, and once awards are made, providers have to ramp up, right? So I think a 3-year period is a comfortable period. We would look to see whether it's opportunity to put out a new RFP in 3 years or extend these contracts. But to put out an RFP every year, it would be an exercise of just work being done to do proposals and write RFPs as opposed to operating services. So I think 3 years, plenty of time for a provider to ramp up and start delivering high quality services.
Okay. I think I would argue that we should be doing this and increasing the amount of services being provided throughout the city according to the pace of the rate that the senior population is growing, and not what is comfortable to the agency, right? So I just want to make sure that we're thinking about that when.
Yeah, it's not a question of comfort for the agency. It's certainly the providers. It's their burden as well. And we are well aware of the growing aging population, and we are trying to get in front of some of these issues.
Okay. Thank you, Deputy Commissioner. I'm going to turn it back to Councilmember Aviles for a follow-up.
Thank you. Can you tell us the total funding that is allocated for NORCs?
If I don't have it, we'll get that to you.
Can you provide a breakdown by borough?
Yep.
For us?
That I have.
I would assume all of public housing would be a NORC. How much of the 36 sites or 52 sites are in public housing?
Again, I can get that to you with a breakdown.
Thank you.
A question for DOF. DOF, do you support the resolution by Councilmember Caban to have folks automatically enrolled in screen injury?
So in order to be automatically enrolled, we need to verify the income. So that's difficult to do with the tools that we have. Happy to look at the bill further and discuss it.
Thank you. All right. Well, with that, I want to thank you all so much for participating with us today, and we look forward to following up on the questions that were not answered today. Thank you.
We will now move to testimony from members of the public who have registered to testify, who are joining us both in person and via Zoom. I will call the first three names. If you are present in person, please approach the table in front. And if you are joining via Zoom, please listen for your name to be called and accept the prompt to unmute. First, we will hear from Munn Clifford, Vic Benson, and Brianna Payton Williams. Munn Clifford, Vic Benson, and Brianna Payton Williams. Thank you so much. You may begin when you're ready.
Thank you, Chair Hudson, Chair Sanchez, and the members of the committee for giving us the opportunity to testify today. We'll be submitting our written testimony later on. My name is Munanity Clifford, and I am the new attorney in charge of the citywide housing practice at the Legal Aid Society. As you know, the Society delivers a full range of comprehensive legal services to low-income families and individuals in the city, including through our Assigned Counsel project. The Assigned Counsel project brings together lawyers and social workers to work as a team to help solve the housing court cases of New Yorkers age 60 and over who present with social services needs. Thank you for partnering with us to provide crucial legal and social services for our vulnerable seniors and people with disabilities. We generally support the bills that are up for discussion today. However, we need to do more to keep seniors and people with disabilities housed. Seniors and people with disabilities who are very low or extremely low income need help to stay in their homes. We as a city want to preserve these homes and apartments for low-income seniors and people with disabilities. We need a subsidy to help them. Either we give them city FEPs or we make the senior citizen rent increase exemption more robust. For instance, we should make the subsidy 30% of income instead of it being a rent freeze. We know that homelessness destabilizes seniors and people with disabilities. They lose access to community and healthcare providers, which leads to increased costs to the city and state in the form of hospitalizations and medical needs, not to mention the shelter costs, which the city mostly bears. We also need to expand the Assigned Counsel project and the Right to Counsel project. But without a way to help seniors and people with disabilities to pay the rent, attorneys can only do so much. So we support Intro 584, but without more funding for the Assigned Counsel project and the Right to Counsel, there will not be enough attorneys to help these seniors and people with disabilities. We would also like to use this opportunity to call on the state to pass good cause eviction. This bill limits evictions only to those cases where the landlord can show that there is good cause to try to remove someone from their home. Passing good cause could help protect the over 4 million market renters by tying rent increases to inflation and limiting predatory evictions. Good cause gives tenants the confidence that they can raise their family in their home. They don't have to worry about being evicted or the stress, anxiety, and the expense of struggling to find another apartment when there are simply not enough affordable units in the first place. Thank you for partnering with us in protecting these vulnerable populations. We are happy to answer questions or to meet to discuss these points further. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Vic Benson, and I'm the policy analyst at City Meals on Wheels. I would like to thank the Council, Chair Hudson, and Chair Sanchez for holding this important hearing on affordable housing, an issue that is critical for all New Yorkers, but is especially challenging for older adults. City Meals works in partnership with the city and the network of home-delivered meal providers to fill the gap by funding the delivery of meals on weekends, holidays, and emergencies to homebound older adults, alongside additional supplemental feeding and connective services. We are also the only organization providing home-delivered emergency meals to older New Yorkers citywide. A core part of our mission is to ensure that older New Yorkers can age in place. We do this by providing food to those who can't make or procure it, but there are other important factors in successfully aging in place. Housing, affordability, and suitability are among the largest of them. We strongly support this package of bills because we have seen firsthand how our more than 20,000 meal recipients are impacted by these issues. Automatic enrollment in SCREE would enable the, as we heard, dozens of thousands of eligible older New Yorkers who are not receiving the benefit to begin, which would dramatically improve the housing stability for this vulnerable group. We also strongly support calls to support older New Yorkers adjusting to the technological burdens to allow them to access already available services. And time again, meal deliverers discover that a client has fallen or is too hurt to come to the door. So we know that ensuring installation of stability devices in home like grab bars and treads are critical to ensuring their safety. Power-assisted doors would make a huge difference for the 40% of our recipients who are unable to leave their homes without assistance and the 90% who use mobility devices. We'd also like to draw your attention to a related issue based on our experiences with meal recipients and deliverers. Frequently, mobility and access is impaired by non-functioning elevators in buildings that already have them. When an elevator is broken, homebound older adults can be effectively trapped in their apartments, and we've heard from many meal recipients that elevator problems often impact their ability to get to doctor's appointments, receive visitors, and generally live independently. Lengthy broken elevators also become a strain on meal deliverers who are slowed down when they must climb flights of stairs to get a meal to a client who may be on the 15th floor, increasing the burden of already difficult work and impacting the food safety of the meals. While landlords are required by law to maintain the habitability of their buildings for all tenants, and may even be required to provide accommodations when repairs cannot be made within a reasonable amount of time, this doesn't always occur. Therefore, we ask the Council consider provisions to ensure that landlords are held accountable to promptly fix elevators and ensure safe accommodations for older and disabled tenants while the elevators are broken. So thank you for the time and for your continued support to ensure older New Yorkers age in place with safety and dignity.
Hello, I'm Brianna Payton-Williams, the Communications and Policy Associate at Live On New York. Thank you for the opportunity to testify today. Live On New York's members include more than 100 community-based nonprofits that provide core services which allow all New Yorkers to thrive in our community as we age. Even prior to the pandemic, New York was in the grip of a housing crisis that made it difficult for tens of thousands of New Yorkers to find stable housing and make ends meet. Today, more than half of older renters are rent burden and are a third of older homeowners. And this crisis is particularly acute for older adults, as many rely on fixed incomes, making it difficult to afford the rent while other costs rise. Further, much of the city's housing infrastructure is inadequate to accommodate an older adult's health and mobility needs. And it's a crisis we must address as New York is aging rapidly, and research shows the majority of older adults would prefer to age in community, surrounded by the network of support built over a lifetime. And so Live On New York recommends the following. First, we invite the city to utilize our new aging policy agenda, and this includes a number of actionable policy solutions, including housing solutions to make New York a better place to age. We also call for a minimum target of 1,000 new units of affordable senior housing with services per year. And this is as part of the total target to construct no more than 8,000 new units of housing dedicated to serving extremely low income and homeless household annually. We also recommend the city increases the per unit and reimbursement rate for the SARA program from $5,000 per unit to $7,500 per unit, and this will allow for increased staff to more adequately, address social isolation and significant case needs. We also call for increased capital funding for public housing to support upgrades throughout NYCHA buildings and improve infrastructure to accommodate older adults. NYCHA is one of the largest sources of affordable housing for older adults, with 38% of households headed by an adult who is 62 or older. And however, NYCHA faces its own set of challenges. For one, the current condition of housing poses a safety risk for many older occupants. From poor ventilation systems, broken elevators, leaking roofs, lead paint, the list goes on. We also recommend and Live On encourages the attention to be paid to improving work order processes initiated by community-based organizations that offer services within NYCHA facilities. And so community-based organizations operating within these NYCHA buildings, like our older adult centers, are critical resources for NYCHA residents and the community at large. And lastly, we ask for an improvement of the SCREE program, the ability for seniors and individuals with disabilities living in these certain housing types to freeze rent really helps to ensure thousands of older New Yorkers will not be priced out of their homes as the rent otherwise continues to rise. And lastly, we are currently reviewing the proposed legislation, but we'll provide more information in our written testimony. Thank you for the opportunity to testify.
Great, thank you. I just have a quick follow-up. For Legal Aid Society, the assigned counsel program, what kind of cases do you see most commonly for older adults?
A lot of the cases that we deal with are older adults that are currently in housing court facing eviction in either a non-payment proceeding or a holdover proceeding. Those are the cases that we generally deal with.
Okay. And that's under the assigned counsel program, not right to counsel?
Yes, these are for seniors who are 60 and over.
Okay, thank you.
We will next hear from Joyce Hillard, James O'Neill, Suhali Mendez, and Patrick Boyle.
Starting time.
James O'Neill. Okay, we'll move to Suhali Mendez.
Hello? Hello?
Okay, yes, we can hear you. You may go ahead.
Okay, they just unmuted me. Thank you. Good afternoon, Chair Sanchez and Hudson, and members of the Committee on Housing and Buildings and Aging. My name is James O'Neill, and I am the volunteer state president of AARP New York, which has about 750,000 members ages 50 plus in New York City. Thank you for providing me with the opportunity to testify at today's oversight hearing to discuss the city's plan to increase affordable housing for older New Yorkers and improve accessibility in the city's housing stock. Older adults represent the city's fastest growing demographic, with the 65 plus age group growing 12 times faster than the under 65 population. Given this reality, the city should pay significant attention to the needs of older individuals, particularly when it comes to livability and housing stability. AARP has long supported and pushed for housing availability, affordability, and accessibility to support the widely held desire among older New Yorkers to remain in their own homes and communities as they age. Some older New Yorkers without family ties and with little retirement savings end up isolated in adult homes because they can't stay in their own home. Others have been forced into the city's homeless shelters by the system because of affordability challenges. Older New Yorkers also often live on fixed incomes that are getting smaller as prices on everything rise. Even before the recent wave of inflation, more than half of the city's voters ages 50 plus were concerned about affordable housing, a percentage far surpassing other concerns, according to an AARP survey. Among Hispanic voters, the number rises to 67%. When AARP expanded the survey to include younger voters, they also rated affordability as a top concern, indicating that this concern will continue into the next generation of older residents. Older New Yorkers from all income levels and backgrounds share the desire for affordability and accessible housing, and the bills introduced into the committee further this goal. I'm here on behalf of AARP New York to express our support for these bills. Specifically, AARP New York supports intro number 141, which would amend the building code to require power-oriented and power-assisted doors to support improved access for older New Yorkers and those with disabilities. AARP also supports intro number 322, which would require the installation, upon request from tenants, of protective devices such as grab bars in bathrooms and treads on the floors in multiple dwelling apartments, and a tax abatement for certain related installations.
Time
Both
expired.
bills would go a long way to ensure New Yorkers can age. We also support intro number 584. Our city's oldest residents deserve age with dignity. Thank you for allowing me the opportunity to testify today. I am happy to provide additional information as needed.
Thank you. Suhali Mendez, followed by Patrick Boyle.
Starting time.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Suhali Mendez, and I'm a senior advocate and legislative coordinator at New York Lawyers for the Public Interest. I would like to thank the chairs Hudson and Sanchez for doing this very important hearing. Our organization represents individuals with disabilities, and we have a robust disability rights practice, which advocates for people with disabilities. And we would like to put on the record that we support intro number 141, intro number 322, and intro number 584, but are proposing some amendments to these introductions. For intro 141, we would like to make sure that that mandating automatic doors will do improve many buildings throughout New York City. And we would like to add the additional requirements of aggressive enforcement by the city. The enforcement of the building code accessibility requirements should be a priority for the Department of Buildings and the Department of Housing Preservation Development. Adding the automatic door openers requirements along with an aggressive enforcement mandate will ensure accessible spaces for New York City's senior citizens and disabled residents to continue to be a part of their communities and remain living independently as possible. With regards to intro number 322, we strongly support including penalties for these housing providers who do not comply with access mandates, as well as the opportunity for tax abatements for those who do. However, focusing solely on the accessibility of grab bars and anti-slip mats is too limited. Disability and the necessary accommodations and modifications for these disabilities are very diverse in nature. There are countless accommodations that could and should be considered protective devices under this provision. We urge to include additional examples and note that there are a list of pre-offered accommodations that is not exhaustive. Additional reasonable accommodation examples can include roll-in showers, widening of doorways, and lowering sink and bathroom counter for residents with mobility impairments. In addition, bathrooms should not be the only subject to the bill's safety and accessibility analysis. There should be modifications and accommodations in building lobbies, access to other areas, units, such as kitchens and closets within the unit, along with the installation of smoke alarms and doorbells for individuals with hearing impairments that flash.
Time expired.
Okay, and in summary, we also support intro number 584 and we want to make sure that the most impactful ways that anti-discrimination laws are enforced is through private actions, and we suggest adding a mechanism to enable easy public access of records of discrimination patterns. And I thank you for your time, and I will be providing written testimony, elaborating more on these points. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Patrick Boyle.
Starting time.
Hi, my name is Patrick Boyle. I'm an assistant vice president with Volunteers of America of Greater New York. We're one of the largest social service providers in the region. Our focus is primarily around housing and homelessness issues. And we have a large portfolio, both of transitional housing and permanent supportive housing, many of which are set aside for seniors. We have senior properties, and many of which we have many senior residents just naturally residing in. Thanks to Chair Sanchez and Chair Hudson for holding this hearing, which is important. We think there's not enough focus on our aging population and our aging clients that we serve, so we do appreciate this hearing. We just wanted to bring attention to a few different things that we see from our perspective as a large houser and social service provider for senior populations. In 2021, we opened East Clark Place Senior Residence, which is a new permanently affordable housing building in the Bronx, developed under the SARA program. It's developed fully accessible. It was designed with senior living in mind, a lot of places to sit, a lot of interconnectivity sort of built into the design and to the programs that we operate there. We're really proud of the building, but in the lease-up process for 122 units, we got 20,000 applications overall, many hundreds of them handwritten. It just, kind of further illustrates what we all collectively already know, which is that there's such a need for this housing, and such a demand for it, and such a need to do more for our seniors. At many of the properties that we manage, they're owned by the city, and we have a lot of capital needs and capital improvements there that impact accessibility issues, elevator outages, flooding and water infiltration issues, heating and cooling inconsistencies. These are very common occurrences, and it's a big issue for many nonprofits that run programs and shelters and transitional housing, where they may not own the building, where they may just be managing the services. So we really think that there should be a pot of funding that nonprofits can turn to, and a really streamlined process to getting some major capital improvements for these buildings, because these are largely housing our seniors in a lot of instances, and really need to do a lot better. When elevators go out, that's a very serious issue in buildings that house so many seniors. Another issue we're seeing across our programs, and it's being seen across the city, is food insecurity, especially in this inflationary environment. And we know that's a big issue for food providers. So we do thank the council for the focus on discretionary funding avenues for food pantries and things to help address that. But we are seeing that. And the final thing that I'll mention today is just about the staff that helps in senior services, and really the need for just pay for those that do all this work.
Expired.
Connecting seniors to resources and housing them, and the need to do better for pay for the nonprofit community. So thank you so much for the time, and I'll be submitting written comments as well.
Thank you so much. We will now hear from Maria Forbes.
Starting time.
I believe Maria is not present on the Zoom. If there is anyone else who is present and has not yet been called, please use the Zoom raise hand function, and we'll try to hear from you now. Seeing no hands, we will turn it back to the chairs to close the hearing.
Thank you so much for everyone's testimony. These are the opportunities that we have to improve upon these bills, so we do appreciate your input. And with that, we will close out today's hearing, and I'll throw it over to Chair Sanchez.
Yep. Thank you, Chair Hudson, and thank you to the staff for help in preparation for this meeting, as well as everyone who was able to participate today. Thank you. And with that, this meeting is adjourned.